I'm going to take a sidestep from my usual commentary relative to current events and talk about a subject relative to the industry that I have been affiliated with for some 8 years. That being tourism. For 7 years, not including, COVID-19, because I was absent for 2020, I have been a New York City tour guide working both the tour bus circuit and conducting walking tours, specifically based around Occupy Wall Street. You can visit my personal website, occupytournyc.com, if you are interested in a tour. Although I don't believe in charging comrades up front. It's a pay-what-you-wish type of deal. But you university professors, you pay up. All right? You're university professors. Being a tour guide is a vocation that I am proud of. Contrary to a section of the left that hates and rejects the concept of tourism, which I will talk about in a little bit, I'm proud to be licensed by New York City. And yes, here's my license right here. And I firmly believe that guides should be licensed by their respective municipalities. A guide who is not officially licensed by their municipality lacks the legitimacy and authority to be an official source of information relative to the municipality that they are supposedly representing. You just can't be some random schlep off the street and show tourists around absent of a knowledge base relative to the city that you're showing people around in, okay? Can't be a Joe Schmo. You got to know something. You got to have a knowledge base. To be entrusted as an ambassador in one of the most important cities in the world, to be the person that visitors turn to for their inquiries about restaurants, local survival tips, bargains, and secret spots for photography, this is a tremendous honor. And I wear that vocation on my sleeve with pride, to be able to share my city with visitors from all over the United States and the world who come in to take in what the Big Apple has to offer. I have spent some 20,000 hours of my time to read about the history, both whitewashed, mainstream, and radical history of New York, learn about architectural styles and disciplines, study urban design and planning as a means to convey the best possible experience for visitors and clients. My philosophy as a tour guide is not to only show you New York, but to make you feel New York as if you were a New Yorker yourself, and not as a visitor in some city that you see in movies and television shows. New York City is so much more than merely its aesthetic. With that stated, the criticism that a segment of the left and activists have regarding tourism is valid. There most certainly is indeed a toxic form of tourism which needs to be snuffed out and thoroughly dismantled. The global tourism industry overall is worth some $9 trillion, with $3 trillion of it allocated within the United States. Within this industry, there are nefarious actors which do not seek to enrich the communities that they are embedded in, but rather exploit the aesthetic of these communities for cheap thrills and escapism at overinflated costs. Their only concern is to maximize profits at the expense of alienating communities by overcharging and ripping off visitors and encouraging visitors to apply their escapist mentality within these communities, flouting norms and standards within these communities of which they are alien to. When tourism is done correctly, it can be an enriching, life-altering experience where one forges bonds and solidarity with communities outside of their own context. When tourism is done wrong, it is environmentally wasteful, disrespectful, and harmful to the host communities. So what is an example of toxic tourism? Here I go again. I'm going to bring up Hawaii. Even more so than Florida, Hawaii is the capital of toxic tourism. The tourism industry there is purely profit-driven and deliberately designed to siphon capital from the visitor, exploiting their desire for tropical escapism and exploiting the aesthetic of the scenery and the aesthetic of Kanaka culture without paying any respect to the environment, which Kanakas consider sacred, or respect to the Kanaka community struggling to survive under the dictatorship of multinational corporations protected by the United States military. The Hawaiian Tourism Authority has allowed for major Asian and American companies to dominate the market there, locking out operations ran by homegrown locals and Aboriginal Kanakas. The business model employed is insulation and not immersion. Local communities are displaced and replaced with luxurious resorts. Aulani is one of them, and Kapolei. They have the visual aesthetic of Polynesia with hired hands to perform non-sacred hula to entertain stupefied visitors who don't know any better. They also got Mickey Mouse in an Aloha shirt. But at the same time, the visitors are still cut off and isolated within bland neoliberal consumer monoculture. Tour buses feature automated tours with banal and outdated information, or the driver's forced to narrate and drive simultaneously, which is dangerous for everyone, as the driver is distracted and cannot put their all into conveying an immersive and informative experience for riders because they're too busy focused on driving. Except for what happened at Pearl Harbor, which the Navy still refuses to clean up, by the way, social and cultural history is downplayed. Instead, ATV tours, zip-lining tours, hang gliding tours, and jet ski tours are promoted, with the visitor learning absolutely nothing about the islands other than paying a premium price to have their adrenaline glands stimulated for a few hours. When visitors are left to their own devices and venture beyond their insulated experiences without a properly licensed guide, got license? Yeah. They will pollute nature trails. They will act inappropriately at Hawaiian burial sites. They will sit on ahus, which are altars, erected by cultural practitioners, a big no-no. They will harass exotic beach fauna, another big no-no, and then openly wonder why Kanakas are so racist towards them when they're just trying to enjoy their tropical escapism that their corporate overlords pre-approved 3 months ago. Having temporarily worked for one of these companies, Coral Crater Adventures, a zip-lining company in Kapolei, this is a prime example of toxic tourism. The co-owner, I think his name is Matt Owen, that he runs with his brother Jim. He went so far to tell me that, Honolulu doesn't really have much cultural history to promote like New York or London. Nobody comes here to learn about that stuff. They just want beaches and to enjoy their time away from home. If you ask me, that comes off as, subtly racist. Yet when I attempted to strike a conversation with one of their clients about these very non-historical concepts, I would be reprimanded, told not to talk with them or get too chummy with them. On top of that, they were overworking their staff, treating their company like a poorly run military operation. They don't allocate regular breaks. They don't pay overtime. Their work site is unkempt, rife with industrial junk. And because of the anarchy of management, lacking a coherent chain of command, I was subject to a motor vehicle accident rushing to a hotel in Waikiki an hour before I was told when I had to initially be there. This is a prime example of parasitic capitalist tourism company that gets nothing but 4- and 5-star reviews, despite doing nothing for the community of Kapolei, or Waianae. By the way, Kapolei is a city that was built off of James Campbell's and Rockefeller Standard Oil blood money, thinks very little of Hawaiian history and culture despite having no problem appropriating the term aloha, exploits their workers, disrespects the Aina, and misleads visitors into believing that Hawaii is some tropical island playground for them to walk into without so much as to paying a single ounce of respect to the community. But sadly, this is just one of many operators that operate in the same exact manner. And, I've been inside the belly of the beast, and if you ask me, I think the beast should be shut down. Which takes me back to the subject of constructive tourism. Constructive tourism yields to the community, not with profit margins in mind, but with the enrichment of both the community and the visitor in mind. Constructive tourism is a learning experience for the visitor to broaden their horizons and experience the visited municipality on the terms of the host community. This is not about escapism. This is not no frills, honesty, and respect approach. Many of my professional colleagues in New York, including myself, believe in this doctrine. We act as community advocates. We instruct visitors on how to conduct themselves appropriately when visiting our historic neighborhoods, or to put it more bluntly, not to act like tourists at Disney World. We encourage visitors to patronize local businesses instead of major corporate chains. We teach them street smarts, local lingo, and how to fit in. When on tour, we encourage immersion. If locals have something to say, we yield our time to the locals who are willing to offer their pearls of wisdom that prepackaged tours don't offer. We forge bonds, friendships, and understanding based on collective shared experiences and not purely on financial transactions based on escapism. We encourage our visitors to enjoy all the iconic sites, the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, Broadway shows, but with a deeper and more profound understanding and appreciation for these institutions, transcending the moment in time and becoming something that is more life-lasting and meaningful. We make sure that they go out of their way to keep our parks clean when in our presence, and that they do exactly as they're told when visiting solemn sites, particularly the 9/11 Memorial. It's not a place for you to horseplay around or act like some nutty conspiracy theorist, okay? And to show the utmost amount of respect for communities that are struggling in the face of gentrification, i.e. Harlem. We need more of that and less of the overpriced adventures that harm and exploit our communities and our cities. As a professional tour guide with some parting words of advice for prospective childless travelers, when you go away, reject your inclination to give into the Disney World mentality. Reject gimmick tourism experiences, jet ski tours, zip line tours, ATV tours. They were not designed to make you into a better or more well-rounded person. They were designed solely with profit margins in mind, giving you cheap and fleeting thrills at overinflated costs. If your tour bus does not include a live tour guide, you tell that tour operator you want your money back, because an audio recording is no substitute for the knowledge of what a live and trained tour guide can provide. Go on walking tours, visit museums, visit communities and nature trails, preferably with a known, trusted, and licensed tour guide. When you go on vacation, demand less, listen more, and try to get to really know the places and the communities that you are visiting. For that is the true purpose of travel, to broaden your horizons, to learn and become a better person, and to return home with a different perspective than the perspective that you originally left with. For those traveling with younger children, in that case, yeah, okay. I'll give it to you. Give them that whole Disney and theme park experience. They're kids. They don't know any better. And preferably at destinations that are suitable for such, where the locale is not alienated. But when your kids get older, teenage years, do not fall into the trap of treating every trip away from home like a theme park. Life is not a theme park. It's so much more than that. Do better, because a vacation steeped in reality has so much more to offer than a multi-$1,000 vacation package pimping out escapism at the expense of marginalized communities. Reject escapism. Embrace reality. You will be a better person for it, and the places that you visit will also be better off as well. This has been my TED Talk. Like and share if you feel obligated to. This is Comrade Pella, signing off.